The Veltheron Directorate had ruled the outer spiral arm for 12,000 years. Their empire stretched across 900 star systems, and their word was law in that corner of the galaxy. When they declared their borders close to all species, no one questioned them. No one dared. The Directorate possessed technology that made other civilizations look like children playing with rocks. Their warships could crack planets. Their shields could withstand the fury of collapsing stars. They had never lost a war because no one had ever been foolish enough to fight them. The announcement came on a cold morning aboard the human diplomatic station orbiting Nexus Prime. Ambassador Chun Wei stood before the holographic projection of Director Velthos, the ruling figure of the Directorate Council. The alien's face was impossible to read. 4 eyes blinked in sequence above a mouth that never seemed to move when it spoke. "The borders are closed," Velthos said. "All human vessels will leave Directorate space within 30 standard cycles. Those who remain will be destroyed. There will be no negotiation. There will be no exception. This is the will of the Directorate." The transmission ended. Ambassador Chun stared at the empty space where the hologram had been. Behind her, her aide whispered something about contacting Earth. But Chun was thinking about the 3 million human colonists on the other side of those borders. She was thinking about the mining operations, the research stations, the families who had built lives in Directorate territory under trade agreements that were now being thrown away like garbage. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the Great Chamber on Centrum, the neutral world at the heart of known space. They spoke in worried tones about the Directorate's decision. They expressed concern for the humans trapped behind the closed borders. They offered sympathy and understanding. But when the human representative asked for help, the chamber fell silent. "We cannot risk war with the Directorate," said the Corvani representative, his voice echoing through the hall. "Perhaps if you wait, they will reconsider. Perhaps in a century or two, they will open their borders again." The human representative stood alone at her podium. She looked around the chamber at all those alien faces, at all those species who'd smiled and traded with humanity for 200 years. None of them would meet her eyes. 3 million of our people are trapped, she said. "Men, women, children, you would have us abandon them?" No one answered. The silence was answer enough. On Earth, the Imperial Council met in the ancient capital of Geneva. The chamber was built from stone and glass, a reminder of the world that humanity had once nearly destroyed and had spent centuries healing. Around the great table sat the 12 admirals of the Imperial fleet and the 7 governors of human space. At the head of the table sat Empress Yuki Tanaka, the 43rd ruler of the Terran Empire. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen 3 wars. She listened as her admiral spoke of the Directorate's military might. She studied the reports that showed the enemy's fleet numbers, their weapons, their defensive capabilities. Every piece of data said the same thing. The Directorate was too strong. A direct assault would be suicide. Admiral Marcus Stone was the last to speak. He was an old man with a face like carved wood and a reputation for winning battles that everyone said could not be won. He placed a data chip on the table and pushed it toward the Empress. "There is another way," he said. The plan was insane. Everyone who heard it said so. The Directorate's borders were protected by a network of sensor stations that could detect any ship entering their space. Their patrol fleets responded to intrusions within minutes. Their weapons platforms could destroy entire armadas before they reached the first populated system. No force had ever broken through those defenses. No force had ever tried. But Admiral Stone had spent 40 years studying the Directorate. He knew their patterns. He knew their weaknesses. And he knew something that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. The Directorate had never faced an enemy that was willing to sacrifice everything for victory. The Imperial fleet assembled in the shadow of Neptune. 300 warships gathered in the darkness, their running lights dimmed, their crews silent at their stations. They were the finest vessels humanity had ever built. Dreadnoughts with armor thick enough to survive nuclear strikes. Carriers loaded with fighter wings ready to swarm through enemy formations. Destroyers fast enough to outrun anything the Directorate could field. And at the heart of the fleet, 12 battleships equipped with a weapon that no other species had ever developed. They called it the Hammer. It was a gravity pulse projector capable of creating artificial singularities. The technology had been born from humanity's desperate need to develop faster than light, travel without access to the gate network that other species used. While the rest of the galaxy had relied on ancient technology they did not fully understand, humans had been forced to find their own path among the stars. The Hammer was a side effect of that research, a weapon that could tear holes in reality itself. The fleet jumped at midnight, Earth time. 300 ships vanished from the Neptune shadow and reappeared at the edge of Directorate space. The sensor stations detected them immediately. Alarms rang out across a dozen systems. Patrol fleets changed course, racing toward the intrusion point. Weapons platforms powered up their planet-killing cannons. But the human fleet did not stop to fight. They jumped again, deeper into Directorate territory, and again, and again. Each jump brought them closer to their goal. Each jump forced the Directorate forces to reposition, to chase an enemy that refused to stand still. Director Velthus watched the invasion from his throne room on the Directorate homeworld. His 4 eyes tracked the human fleet's progress across the tactical display. Around him, his generals spoke of interception points and defensive formations. They assured him that the humans would be destroyed. They promised that this insult would be answered with fire. Velthos said nothing. He watched the display, and for the first time in his 300-year reign, he felt something he did not recognize. It took him several moments to identify the emotion. It was fear. The human fleet reached the Velthary system in 6 hours. The Directorate's home system was protected by the largest concentration of military power in the galaxy. 2,000 warships formed a wall of metal and energy between the humans and the sacred homeworld. Weapons platforms the size of moons floated in silent readiness. This was the heart of Directorate power. This was where the invasion would end. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, the HFY Relentless. He looked at the enemy formation through the main view screen. 2,000 ships. More firepower than humanity had ever faced. More firepower than any species had ever faced. All ships, he said into the fleet-wide channel, deploy hammers. Target the center of their formation. The 12 battleships moved forward. Their crews knew they would not survive this battle. They had volunteered anyway. Humanity did not leave its people behind. Humanity did not abandon 3 million souls to die in foreign space. If the price of their freedom was the lives of 12 ships and their crews, then that price would be paid. The hammers fired. 12 artificial singularities bloomed in the heart of the Directorate fleet. Reality twisted and screamed. Ships that had stood for 10,000 years were pulled apart like wet paper. Weapons platforms designed to survive stellar explosions crumbled into gravity wells that should not have existed. In 30 seconds, 400 Directorate warships ceased to exist. The wall was broken. The human fleet poured through the gap. What followed was not a battle. It was a statement. The human ships did not try to destroy the Directorate fleet. They did not attack the homeworld. They raced through the chaos, past the burning wreckage of ancient warships, past the screaming survivors in escape pods, past all the might of an empire that had ruled for 12,000 years. They headed for the colony worlds, for the mining stations, for the research outposts, for every place where human beings waited for rescue. Director Velthos received a communication from the human flagship 3 hours after the battle. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the view screen, calm and steady as granite. Director, Stone said, the borders you closed were walls. We do not accept walls. We do not leave our people trapped behind them. You will grant us safe passage for the evacuation of all human citizens from your space. You will not interfere. And when we are gone, you may close your borders again. We will not trouble you. But know this: if you ever threaten our people again, if you ever trap our citizens behind your walls again, we will return. And next time, we will not be so gentle. The evacuation took 3 weeks. Human transports streamed across Directorate space, collecting colonists, miners, scientists, families. The Directorate forces watched but did not interfere. They had seen what human weapons could do. They had seen 400 of their ships die in 30 seconds. They had learned that some species would not be pushed. The last transport left Directorate space on a quiet morning. Behind it, the borders closed again. But something had changed. Across the galaxy, species that had watched the invasion spoke in hushed voices about what they had witnessed. A young species, barely 2 centuries old on the galactic stage, had broken through defenses that were supposed to be unbreakable. They had challenged an empire that had never been challenged. And they had won. On Earth, the returning colonists were greeted as heroes. The 12 battleship crews who had died in the attack were given the highest honors the Empire could bestow. Their names were carved into monuments that would stand for 10,000 years. But Admiral Stone did not attend the celebrations. He stood alone on a balcony overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching the sunset paint the water gold and red. Empress Yuki found him there as the last light faded. "You saved 3 million lives today," she said. Stone shook his head. "We made a statement today. We told the galaxy that humanity will not be caged. We told them that our people are not pieces to be abandoned on a board. The lives we saved were just the beginning." The Empress stood beside him in silence. She understood what he meant. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The borders had been opened. The walls had been broken. And somewhere out there, among the stars, other empires were watching, wondering if humans would come for them next. They would learn, as the Directorate learned, that humanity did not accept closed doors. Humanity did not leave its children behind. And when the choice came between peace and the lives of their people, humanity chose its people every single time. The stars burned cold and distant above the ocean. Admiral Stone watched them and smiled. The universe was vast and full of empires that thought themselves untouchable. They would learn. They would all learn. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again.